Dane, hello, Dr. Medlock. So we went with the title for this week's topic from kind of some stuff that emerged from last week's meeting, and I just want to get your thoughts. Is that we're a few minutes early here, but I think we might as well start broadcasting this and
sure,
talking about today's topic.
Well, you know what I like about it is there is an unwritten job description, which is the stuff that you can't talk about that they're really screening for. Part of the unwritten job description is, are you the person I want to spend 8 hours a day with for the next 5 days a week for the next 5 years of my life? Who are you as a human being that I would enjoy being with and would find that an enriching experience? They can't ask that question. They can't even write it in the job description, but that's always part of what's being assessed. So how you are, how you present yourself, how you relate to them, how you make them feel when they're talking to you, how you feel being with them, are all parts of the unwritten job description that you're always negotiating as you're engaging around the job. So
would you say that that's even an unconscious thing for a lot of people? It's not even, they might not even know that they're screening for that.
That's a great point. And I think in many cases, we're screened. In fact, the way the neuroscience of this is that when you're looking at a task, you're like looking like this. So what's the job description? What are the requirements? Have we got the right task? We got the right list? We got the set of competencies we need. But then there's, and who's the human being that has all these qualities? And is this a person I like working with or not?
Yeah. And they might not even, because we get a lot of people who share, they get no callbacks, they don't, or they just say they went with a better candidate. And to actually get information from somebody who didn't hire you, and if you could get into it, I wonder how often it would be just like if I'm really honest, I just didn't feel comfortable with you.
Here's the bind. They can't say that because they could be sued for that.
Okay.
So this is you're entering into a world of HR compliance where they're trained to not give a reason why they didn't select you. So they can't be candid about, frankly, I just didn't hit it off with you. And that's why it's like, but if I happen to be a minority or a protected class, well, of course, that's the issue here. And I'm going to sue you for that. So that kind of thing. So it's understandable, but it's something that what it is it puts responsibility on the savvy job searcher to be aware of how they present themselves and how they're being is a factor that they can't ultimately control all of that, but they can be attuned to that and aware of that as part of what they're looking for.
Okay. So let's say that we have somebody who's not, let's say high in social and emotional intelligence, but who's really good at their job.
Yeah.
And if we're working with them, having them say something like, hey, I am a numbers guy. I'm always going to have great data. I'm going to make sure of that. And I'm working on my communication skills. How am I doing with that right now as I'm talking to you? I'm just checking this stuff out and trying to build rapport and say what's so. What do you think about that?
Well, it's a good question. And I think there's the distinction between telling versus showing that's really important. Sometimes you're better just demonstrating it and being that person. And you do your homework ahead of time. So you are bringing that, because that you're asking for feedback that may be out of their domain for being able to give that in a good way. But I think it's the reason why our programs are important. We create a place for you to grow and develop those capacities so that you're more savvy about that, probably than the interviewers are. Most hiring managers are not particularly skilled in these things. It's not their job. So they're not that good at it. We're spending more time focusing on all these subtleties of interpersonal relationships. So I think you're better off showing it by demonstrating the interpersonal competence and then going back to your coach and saying, here's how it went. What do you think? Here's where I had a gut check. I'm not sure what was going on there. Your body is actually gathering data for you all the time on how things are going. So
Okay.
there's a way we read each other at a nonverbal level that we only are just grabbing little bits and pieces of useful information. So having a coaching experience where you can go deeper into, well, what did that feel like? What was going on? You'll get a ton of information that way. So I think it's really about how to use coaching effectively so that you go into the interview in good shape and aware. That's the way I would position that.
Okay. Oh, cool. Fantastic. Well, we are almost at time to launch here. Welcome, Cynthia. Good to see you.
Yeah, welcome.
So, Career Lab Wednesday. We are here every Wednesday from noon to 1 Central Time. Had some folks on the East Coast wanting to join in a little earlier. Sorry, guys. Hopefully, you're still able to come in now. So we are here. Our primary aim is to serve you in your career growth, career transition, whatever it is that you've got going on. We take all questions career related. We pick a topic each week that kind of builds on the last week's conversation, what's hot, what people are wondering about. So that's why this week we are going into the unwritten job, let's see, wait.
Unwritten job description, yeah.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Medlock. Our unwritten job description. And you were sharing a little bit about that, Dr. Medlock, and I think as people are still joining in, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the unwritten job description.
Yeah. So, well, there's another piece about the unwritten job description that we haven't touched on yet, which is how do job descriptions get written in the first place? Why are they offering a job? Well, typically, a job is related to some problem that they're trying to solve in their organization that they need some help with. So each job that we do has to do with some task or some function that needs to be provided that they need a person to fulfill. So you're writing your job descriptions based on how your processes are changing. What are the problems you're looking for? You're looking for a person maybe who has a set of skills that you didn't have before, but now you need this set of skills because you've identified a problem that wasn't getting addressed before. So it's the result of a whole problem-solving process, which is why the best way to find a job is to be talking to people while they're still dealing with the problem before they posted the job. Because then you get on the inside and you help them define it, and you actually can help in that process and show them how you're the person for it, and you got the job before it ever hit the posting stage. So that's another good reason to be proactive in the interviewing and networking part of this as well. So.
Oh, fantastic. Cool. Thank you, Dr. Medlock. So again, this is Career Lab Wednesday. We're talking about the unwritten job description. Dr. Medlock loves this topic, and there's so many things to think about in this because it's, stuff that you can't say, but that's going on with people in the hiring process, and being able to be aware of that, get your foot in early if that's possible. All good stuff to be touching on here. But I want to say again, we are inviting all questions, and there's a couple ways you can do that. We love it when you jump in, like Tiffany, Cynthia, and Cassandra. Welcome, Cassandra. When you jump in here, we can work with you directly. You can type your questions into the chat here. If you can't, and you're only viewing it on LinkedIn Live, type your questions into the comment section. Jane Coletto will get those over to us. Our lovely assistant will make sure that we can see those here. We'll do our best to answer those. But again, if you can, join in the Zoom link. That way we can work with you directly. So saying all that, I would love to hear from you, Tiffany, Cynthia, or Cassandra. What is it that you're working on? How can we support you today? And I know, Cassandra, this may be your first time on, and Cynthia, you may not want to share, but just opening the floor in case you wanted to.
I can share.
Hey, Cassandra, welcome.
Hi. I'm looking at transitioning transitioning with a career. I'm at the end of an MBA program, and I have worked in nonprofit education for the past like 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking to transition either into ed tech or a different space with that, or out of it completely. And
Okay.
part of it is not knowing where to start for me.
So Cassandra, I'm curious, you said you're coming out of an MBA program. Are you just finishing one that you've been involved in?
Yeah, so I'm about 4 classes away from finishing, and I've enjoyed it a lot. It's been challenging for sure, and I've been able to use a lot of the, using the coursework or the skill development in my job now.
Good.
But I've also then it's opened up a world of like all these different fields and interesting jobs that I didn't even know existed. And I have yet to meet with a career advisor, because there it's like they want you to know already what you want to do, and that's where there's like too many things I want to do. So
First of all, they're being
so
lazy.
that's not really helpful.
They're being lazy. They should be saying, well, we'll take you even if you're not clear yet, and we'll help you get clear. That's what we do. So I think they're not doing their job fully. But anyway,
Right.
it is a good idea. The
Yeah.
more you can be clear, the more you can take advantage of it. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so I've been kind of I have colleagues that are very like, you could do this, you could do that, and you should be getting this, or in terms of pay or whatever. But it's just, I'm at this point right now where it's almost overloading with like too much, and I need to focus and narrow in, and I'm just quite not sure where to start with doing that.
Well, first of all, I applaud you for taking on the new educational experience, looking at exploring what your next opportunity might be. So you're in a process. And one of the challenges of something like this is when you're completing a degree program, you want to have a narrative, a story that explains why this is an important part of your transition toward where you're going right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you've already seen new opportunities open up and some things that you are excited about. So tell us a little bit about what those things you're seeing that are tempting you right now, or that you think, boy, this is something I might really like to learn more about.
Right. Yeah. So I actually, before I did worked in the education space, I worked in IT, database design and user experience, back in the day when it was like not as advanced as it is now. There was not Google and all of these ways to learn it. And the only really way to learn it was, taking classes. And, if you had access to the hardware, then I guess, playing with it or the software, but I did not. So for me, although that was a huge interest, was about access to information, access to knowledge, and that's why I gravitated towards then education, and then towards ed tech too. So one of the things I initially thought I would end up doing was consulting in the higher ed space. But I don't know if I'm just disenchanted with the higher ed space. And I've been really drawn into the ed tech space, platforms like Udemy and Outlier and all of these new ways of learning, Google, their work. And so then the consulting piece doesn't feel as energizing as going into something like that, either with I don't have I don't have necessarily all the skills for user design now, the coding in that, but I have the process essentially that like product managers do. I do that process in my job now as a director. But my product is essentially a service. And so, you know, looking at even SaaS's, software as service,
Mhm.
and that kind of thing. And I guess I'm just struggling now with like transitioning my skill set to mirror a lot of that. It's like a whole different jargon, but
Cool. Well,
when
here's
I
what I'm
boil it
seeing.
down, it's the same.
So let me reflect what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing
Uh-huh.
is ed tech space for you is exciting to you. It brings back an old interest that you've had, kind of
Yep.
revitalizes it, and it also leverages your background in education. So it gives you that step in. Is that accurate so far?
Yes, that's accurate.
Yeah. So that to me, and the consulting things felt kind of, you know, something you're drifting away from toward this more exciting opportunity. And it
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense from what I'm hearing about you so far. So I'm also hearing that there may be some skill development that you need specific in that field to get up to speed on it. Is that also accurate?
Yeah, to especially to familiarize with the language, the terminology of it.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned a couple of the new educational tech platforms that are interesting to you, like Udemy and a couple others. So, are you exploring those and seeing what you're just playing around in those and getting a feel for them?
Um, I've been trying to. I've been so busy with
Yeah.
everything, and then you know, my position at my job has kind of um, entered this new phase where you know, we've a lot of the results of the work I put in has yielded some really fruitful, like we've been endowed at the university. So the program that I developed and have run, essentially created for the past 10 years, is becoming endowed. So to continue, yeah, and that's like a huge deal. Something I didn't even really realize that it was. So now I'm in this process of like, do I ask for compensation? Do I just focus my energies on, you know, they're saying it's thrilling, but no one's offering me money. So
Mhm.
I've been like, I asked for a raise, but at the same time, like, you know, I am thinking about pursuing this. So it's the most I've done is just really like read up on the platforms, try to connect with people on LinkedIn who are in the spaces.
Mhm.
There's no one really in like my business, in my cohort, that's in like ed tech,
Mhm. Mhm. Well,
or they're,
yeah, let me
yeah,
say a bit here because you mentioned something very important. In other words, your programs that you've been working on for 10 years have just gotten a huge acknowledgement,
yes,
and you're getting an endowment behind it. And this is your baby, right? This is the thing you've been
yes.
working on. So one of the things we look at is before we jump to a new field or a new
Mhm.
job, have we really taken advantage of all the opportunities present in our current situation and really leveraged those and grown and developed in the current role? So
Mhm.
it sounds to me like you have a golden opportunity here to look at how could I now take this to another level in my career, perhaps moving in this area that I'm interested in, but right in my current job, there may be some real
Mhm.
development opportunities for you. What are your thoughts about that?
I thought about that, but I guess I'm just nervous to bring it up about like, you know, and I did bring it up a little bit to my supervisor of, you know, I'm in this program and the MBA, they're the ones that backed my you know, application and that. And but I would really like to see what else I could do, because that you know, this was, it's a fine, you know, oiled machine. And so
Mhm.
it's like, either is there a way that we can expand it or create some sort of new initiative from it.
Cool.
um I
So,
guess
so
I do
you're,
feel the restlessness in it, and so I'm
so,
nervous about that. If I do that, it's going to be attached to me staying there 10 more years.
oh, so you don't believe that what you're going to create will be really for you and really be something you'd really love doing?
Yeah, I'm not sure it will. I guess because I know like the segment of people right now I reach, to me, is
Actually,
it's small.
Cassandra,
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a suggestion here. We start out when we do our coaching work like this in the general stream area of LinkedIn, and it's to encourage people to get engaged. But then at the second half of this hour, we go into a more personal and private space that is not being for people to do more in-depth coaching. It strikes
Yeah,
me.
we'll stop streaming it on LinkedIn Live.
So this strikes me as, for us to pursue
Yeah.
this conversation more depth, I'd rather have a more private space to work with you on this. So does that make sense?
Sounds
So,
good. Yeah, that makes sense.
but what I do want to say though here in the sort of public sphere here is that it's really important for everybody who's in a career development perspective to take responsibility for their own initiative and visioning of their career opportunities. So
yeah.
If you go to your manager saying, gee, what do you think we could do with this? It's not going to get you what you really want. What I would suggest is you get the picture of what would really excite you. What would be the job opportunity that you see in this that would be really like, wow, if I could do this, that would be like so cool. And then look at how that would serve the organization as well and how to pitch that to your manager. And so I think there's some homework for you to do to consider that. Now, there may be other factors in the organization that make that less attractive. And we could talk about that in our more private space, if that makes sense. Okay.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you for bringing this in. That's a beautiful suggestion. And this is a good example for everybody on the call of someone who's in a dynamic flow right now of moving from where she's been. She's been successful where she's been, and she's looking at what more can she want and where can it develop for her. And that's really what way we view careers at Wright, is that and George Donald always says this, I keep hitting this theme, but I think it's basically one that our career is an opportunity for our own growth and development as human beings. So if you're not growing and learning in a way that's helping you flourish, we have the luxury right now at this point in our civilization that you can select a job that would be more fulfilling. We're not building pyramids where we have to lug a rock for the next 15 years to take it to the top of the pyramid, and that's the job we're going to have for the rest of our life. We've moved to a civilization where we're now expecting people to be fulfilled in their work. So I encourage you to all to be, doing what Cassandra's doing, is really looking at what am I wanting? What's going to give me deep fulfillment, a chance to contribute, this sort of thing. So thank you, Cassandra, for that, for your share. And I look forward to talking with you more privately shortly. So.
Thank you so much, Dr. Medlock, for underlining that, and Cassandra for opening up that conversation. There's a huge thing around taking advantage of a transition. We do all kinds of leadership trainings, and one of the things that comes up is that transitions are a time where we often make a lot of mistakes as humans. We often leave things out. We don't take advantage of things that we could have taken advantage of. And so in a career transition, oftentimes there's uncomfortable conversations that that I unconsciously will be doing my best to avoid. But if I'm really honest with myself and looking at what I care about and seeing what the organization that I might be transitioning out of, seeing, what they could move into or things that I'm unhappy about there, it really could tee up some wonderful conversations that the bosses or managers or whoever you'd be talking to might say, wow, I'm so glad you talked to me about this. I think I shared about the woman who said she was going to leave her job, and her boss was like, no, you're like the third person. What's going on? And she was like, well, you never give anybody credit for anything. It's painful. And her boss was like, okay, I'm going to look to you to make sure I'm doing this well. And after meetings was saying, okay, how did I do? Did I acknowledge you enough? And just really went to changing the culture. It's not always going to happen and everything, but if we don't hold the possibility, and then Dr. Medlock, back to what you're saying about it being an opportunity for you to develop, even if on the way out of a company, if you can have conversations that you wouldn't have had before, you are now developing yourself. You are now developing your social and emotional intelligence skills. Even if you make some mistakes in the process, it's a wonderful time to take advantage of that opportunity. So I just wanted to underline that.
Cool. Thank you, George.
So welcome everybody. Great. Gina, good to have you on again. Sherry Lawn, good to have you. Flora, welcome. This is Career Lab Wednesday. We're here every Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central. At a certain point, we will stop the LinkedIn stream here. But I want to invite anyone to ask questions or share what's going on for you. Flora, Gina, Sherry, what brings you on today? How can we support you? You're welcome to come out. Hey, Gina, good to see you.
Thank you, George. It's nice to be here again. I'm, I don't know if this is contradictory to the topic, but I'm in the process of looking for another position after being, laid off. There was a huge organizational-wide restructuring, and I'm reading all these different articles on LinkedIn about how to utilize a platform effectively and how networking is so important. I'm doing everything that is being told or suggested to do, and absolutely, I hear crickets. It's getting very frustrating. Oh, you need to network. You need, I've been networking. Nothing.
How are you networking?
Through LinkedIn, outside of LinkedIn. I don't post because I don't feel comfortable posting on LinkedIn because, opinions can be misconstrued and therefore cast a certain.
Well, yeah, I don't know that opinions would really help you. On
yeah.
LinkedIn.
So long story short, I'm just trying to figure out, different strategies for landing new opportunities, employment opportunities outside of, what all the, it's the same recommendations that are offered from article to article about how to use LinkedIn. Networking within LinkedIn is so important. Not just applying for any job, being very specific, tailoring your resume and cover letters to each specific, job opportunity you apply to. Nothing seems to work. And I'm just trying to figure out what that secret sauce is. Put it that way.
Couple of questions, I guess. First of all, are you familiar with the book, What Color is Your Parachute?
No.
He spends the first 5 chapters talking about traditional job searches. And then he says, for those of you who found out that none of that really works, read chapters 6, 7, and 8. And so I would suggest you get that book and read it's either 6, 7, or 8, or 5, 6, or 7. But basically, it's when the traditional job search methods are not working, this is the kind of networking that will lead to that kind of result. So it gives you a really good practical set of things to do that I recommend. And I'll speak a little bit to that right now. But so What Color is Your Parachute by John Bowles is his last name. Bolles is the author's name. He's written a separate edition every year, so you get the latest updates in technology and everything like that. So, but tell me a little bit, what kind of a job are you looking for?
Well, I'm mainly process improvement and project management. That's, mainly in the healthcare setting, but, these skills can be carried over into other, arenas as well. So it doesn't have to be healthcare. And somehow job market tries to pigeonhole you into one sector and that only. And then they further pigeonhole you. Are you Lean Six Sigma? Are you Agile, or et.cetera.? And it seems to be that's the case. So at this point, I can't be too picky. So
is this the industry you want to stay in?
Yes, I don't want to go back to where I was. This was a career move that I had made several years ago.
Okay.
So, and I don't see how someone would want me in my former career or profession.
Good. So are you lean or agile in terms of your orientation?
I'm more Lean Six Sigma. Okay. That's how I was in organizational change management with that. So I'm just trying to figure out, different strategies on how to,
So have you identified, say, a half dozen companies that fit the profile of where you would most like to work?
Absolutely. I've applied to all of them.
Good.
And it's more of more of a norm that organizations are adopting organizational change management and performance improvement or project management, particularly PI work within their establishments.
Perfect. So you've got your target organizations, you've researched them, you know what they need, you've got an intelligent understanding of who they are, right? So the key question in this alternate way of looking for a job is, how do you network into that company? You want to bypass HR at all costs. In other words, you don't want to go through the traditional job description process. I shouldn't say you don't want to. It's always something to do. You always want to respond to a job opening, but it's the job openings that are already posted are doing exactly what you're describing. They're trying to rule people out. So what you want is to be able to get networked into an organization that you know you really want to work for, to have the conversation with eventually somebody who can lead you to a hiring manager who's looking for somebody like you. So the question is, how are you doing in terms of finding entrees into where somebody can introduce you to somebody within the organizations you want to work for? How's that going?
That's where it's difficult. I have, very good friendships with certain, with individuals that are in these companies, and it's difficult to get in through the back door. That's what I'm hearing. Don't go through the traditional front door through HR. Go through the back door. It's not working either.
So when you call your friends, what happens there?
They can only do so much. They have my resume. They're going to, they're presenting on my behalf. I mean, I don't know how else to, have them do that. I mean, they're going on my behalf and providing hey, you know what, Joe or Nancy, whomever, I know somebody would be a great fit for this role. Here they are, I don't know. I'm not in the room. I'd love to be a fly on the wall to hear how that goes. But I don't know if anyone else is facing this, scenario that I am now, when we're hearing that, oh, there's two people for every, job out there, or two jobs for every person. However, it is what I'm hearing right now in the job market. And that's definitely not the case. Unless I'm so highly specialized.
Well, what's your sense of the market you're in terms of the hiring climate right now? Is it positive or not in your industry?
I don't think so, but I have what do you call it? My former company has matched us up with a recruiting firm that is supposed to help us, redesign our resume and help us with our marketing and branding and strategy, job opportunity, seeking strategies. They're saying, oh, the market's just great. Don't worry, you'll be able to get a job. I'm like, well, do you have any data to back that up? What are you seeing right now? Oh, we don't have that. I'm like, so I just find that a little weird. So I wish I had that answer to be able to, give you an answer. They're like, oh, why don't you just keep a spreadsheet on your own and track your data? And I'm like, but that doesn't help. I'm like, how long on average does it take your individuals to find a job that you're working with? Oh, well, it can take from 2 months all the way up to 9 months, maybe. I'm like, is that per, different, within different industries, et cetera? So it seems to be very ambiguous. So I'm finding this whole terrain very ambiguous.
There's also different qualities of job. You're in outplacement. I used to do work in outplacement, by the way. So the company hires these people. I'm not saying they're good. A lot of times they're good people, but mostly they're there because the company's trying to do something because they just laid a bunch of people off. So it's a kind of sometimes not the best quality or the top quality in terms of kind of support you might want. So there might be some of that their client is the company who's paid for them to do this service for you guys. So it's going to be kind of cookie cutter in a way and kind of generic, which I think is what you're experiencing. So all of that is, it's good that you're doing that. I think that's all the right stuff you need to be doing. You're doing the right things. But you're not even getting interviews, right? You're not getting anything right now. Is that correct?
If I am getting interviews, I would say maybe 6% out of 65 positions I've applied for, I've gotten an interview. But when I get that interview, they've already have someone that they want to hire. You can just tell. In my perspective, it hasn't been a pleasant experience. Not that I don't interview well, I do. You can tell that they're disengaged. You can tell that they're just not, you can tell when somebody's not there at that meeting, sitting down, having that conversation with you. I just find it, I'm not sure. So, I'm also reading, use recruiters and recruitment agencies on LinkedIn. They too, I can't seem to, to work that angle either, because they want to sell you their services to be a life coach to you, right, and which is fine, but that's not what I need right now.
You know, I appreciate it. And I hear the frustration in your voice. It's like you're hitting up against the wall. Just one thought that comes to mind. I mean, one of the books that I have found very helpful for people in any situation is really, it's a book by the author's name is escaping me right now. The book is up here. I can pull it off. But it's what are you, basically the premise is, what are you so good at that they couldn't possibly want to fire you for? In other words, what's the unique skill set that you have that would differentiate you in the marketplace and draw attention to somebody who would say, well, you know, we need that, and boy, we sure would want to keep you because of that skill set. Well, how would you describe your unique skill set in that respect?
My unique skill set is, you know, being a performance improvement agent, as I call myself, or a Lean Six Sigma leader. My experiences with, you know, facilitating and leading projects and incorporating change management within there has, you know, actually improved processes and business acumen for their clients internally and externally. I've saved one of my former employers over $3 million within a single year by making some minor tweaks and leading a project on that, as well as providing, you know, products and programs to engage their clientele so that not only it keeps them retained, but it brings on others as well. So
cool. So Gina, you've persuaded me. So you're going to find a job, no question about it. And it's just sometimes very frustrating, but you have the skill set, you have a very plausible narrative, you're doing the right things, and you have a very convincing story. And I assume you have documentation, and you can demonstrate. You know, if people wanted to know the specifics, you can say these are the projects where I've done it and how I've been successful. So it's, I think, a matter for you of continuing to use the informal networking process. Take a look at this book by Bowles that I mentioned, and just, it's going to be about knocking on a lot of doors. It's going to be about, you know, I'm sure you're doing all this right now. And part of what you're also expressing is how frustrating and alienating this process can be, because there's a sense, the feeling that you don't have the power, that the companies have the power, and they're the ones that are going to give you or not give you the job. And it can be very difficult and very upsetting when you're running up against the kind of barriers you've run up against. Persistence and resilience is going to be really important, because you've got the skill set, Gina. There's no question about it. You can make a contribution. You're looking for a place to be able to do it. And you know, I think sometimes it's hard to maintain a sense of I'm okay and I've got the right sense about this, but that's what I'm hearing. So I think it's, again, more the personal networking and relationships, even if at this point, if there was some volunteer work you could do in a project that would be interested in the kind of work you want to do, or with an association or something like that, something to keep your hand in. It's ironically sometimes more about being a net giver in these situations. How can I contribute in some way, and having that lead to something else? So that's the best I can do right now in terms of sort of suggestions, but I encourage you to just stay on your own side on this, because I do think you've got the talent and abilities, and you've got a skill set that's needed out there. I'm convinced of that. So,
oh, thank you so much. It's not that I'm down on myself. I'm just curious to know, is this the norm that you're seeing across, or anyone else here on this, you know, on this Zoom call or thing?
So I'm reminded of somebody who was on maybe 6 months ago, who is often overqualified for jobs. And what he ended up doing was something like what Dr. Medlock just said, was he started working at a company, and they were like, well, we can't afford to pay you what you're worth. And he said, yeah, but I can handle the problems. I'm going to help you here. And this is interesting to me anyway. And, you know, he was kind of doing a location move. And that ended up leading him to exactly what he wanted to be doing, something he's very excited about. And so it was a slower transition for him. So, you know, the norm of what I've seen in this group is anything from maybe the max time of 3 months to really get to the spot where you're interviewing, you've got several options available to you. And then sometimes it's like, you know, the next week things start opening up for people, kind of depending on where you're at. Does that help, Gina?
Yeah, it does. I mean, at least you're giving me a general timeline. I'm going on 3 months now. So I'm just wondering if other people are experiencing this, and sometimes it's good to know that you're not the only one.
Yeah, totally.
It makes you feel sane. Because I see all these wonderful people here on these calls, and I've been on more than one, and I'm like, wow, there's so many talented, brilliant minds here and individuals that contribute so much. And it's like, what is the problem? Why is the job market like this? So sometimes it feels, you feel like you're not isolated and siloed. So thank you.
Good.
But I do want to open up that conversation, but let me add one other thing. We just had a gentleman who was with us for a year and finally landed a job. And one of the things is the higher up you are in the organization, the longer it'll take. That is pretty well defined. So it's not at all unusual for something to go 6 to 9 months if you're at a fairly senior level, which it sounds like you are. And because that's a bigger investment, there's more caution. There's a lot more loophole, not loopholes, but obstacles to kind of overcome kind of things, and more. Anyway, it just takes longer. There's no question about it. And it's more of a personal networking process, even once you're in, to get the right contacts and stuff. So, but he took a full year to become the police chief of police at the Hawaii Police Department in the organization that he was in. Lots of screening, lots of bureaucracy, lots of testing, all that sort of thing. So it can take 6 to 9 months or more in a senior position. So that's not unusual.
Well, thank you.
Okay, but let's open it up. Please, anybody else here can support Gina on the question she's got of what's it like for you guys, and what are you learning, and who else is facing this kind of stuff?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. It's Flora Anderson here. So I don't have a similar issue that Gina had just said. My actual issue, and I don't know if maybe you could all help me on this, but it's breaking a certain amount of how can I say, salary in my work field. So I have noticed that I can't break a certain amount, and I just recently found out that some of my work colleagues who I actually oversee are making more than I. And so I have decided to move on with the company, and actually not move on, seek other options. And so I have, and the only thing that I have found without working in Illinois is maybe $2,000 more than what I am making now. And so I think that's where I would need guidance. I don't know if anyone else has those issues. I've tried negotiating my pay. I won't be taking benefits because I have a very good insurance through my husband right now. And so that has been my biggest issue, is breaking this certain cap range that I have been stuck with for over the last 4 years. And I'm actually in the education field as well. I am currently a project manager, and I oversee about 6 other colleagues of mine and assist them. I've traveled to Washington, D.C. I've traveled to other states to assist them in their school enrollment. And so after there's a few management change, somehow salary came out and everyone started saying what they make, and I made the lowest. And so I was told it was because I live in the state of Indiana and it's less pay here, but two of the other people that I oversee are also within the state of Indiana. So I didn't see that to be an actual reason. And so when I tried to ask them for a pay raise, they declined it. And so now that I'm looking into another organization, I was offered $10,000 more than what I am making now in Illinois, but not within Indiana. And that would be my dream, to be able to have a higher pay raise, but within the state of Indiana.
And what's your field? You said it's in education primarily?
Yes, in community outreach efforts and parent involvement.
So I'm hearing 2 issues. One, that you are, first of all, you're in the state of Indiana, which is seems to be an issue. But the other thing is that there are people that are in the same job that are making more money than you are. So there's some sort of inequity issue going on at this point. It sounds like that actually right. There are opportunities in your current job that you could be paid more and are not. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. And I have been able to speak with these other personnel, and they have told me that they actually have less years of experience in the education field. And so I'm confused as to what skills maybe I don't have that they do, but as their manager, I assume I have higher skills than them.
Well, are we dealing with any kind of bias or prejudice going on in this organization? I'm just curious.
There may be. If it's still live, I don't know if I would be able to say it, but I
Maybe that's the time. Maybe now's a good time for us to transition. We're already 9 minutes over. So
good. Thank you, GD. Good.
Yeah.
Call.
So Jane, go ahead and stop the live stream. So everybody on LinkedIn Live, great to be with you. We will be back next week, noon to 1 p.m. Central. We're starting to transition to not streaming for the second half of this. So thanks, everybody. Please keep your questions coming in. We'll do our best job to get to those. Jane, hello.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just let us know when it's stopped.